Hi, this is Adam Onslaught, and really pleased to be here today to talk to Mr. Mike Ross about his brand new project, Origin Stories. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, Adam. It's good to be here, mate. Nice to see you.
So, just let's get down to the brass tacks here. Mm-hmm. Why put another album of old songs out now? Tell me about the special connection to these particular songs you have, and the reasons why you've revisited them. What's your motivations?
Yeah, well, earlier this year I ran a small crowdfunder campaign for funds to put out an album that I recorded in the 90s with my old band Taller Than, that was never released. We went in the studio, we ran out of money, and then it got leapfrogged. We ended up doing other things, so we had these tapes, and obviously the last 18 months getting on for has been difficult for most people for the same reasons of COVID just kind of impacting our ability to do anything. So I wanted to keep busy. So I'd put a new album out of original material, and I'd done some live streams and this, that, and the other. Got to Christmas time, and I'm this isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So I started looking into things that I could do to keep delivering things for my audience to be getting on with, and also it's like a little bit of a, is it curatory, or would it be curation? An act of curation?
Curative, perhaps?
Curative.
Let's play with that word.
Might be healing. Maybe it's just curating. I wanted to kind of go back. This stuff was unresolved. So anyway, Taller Than was that project, and it was. I watched people really engage with it. It was really rewarding for me, because that band was a really great band that we never really did anything. It never really got any recognition for. So to be able to go back and put it out and to have all this great feedback, people all over the world, it got played on the radio, and and now that is in a much better condition to survive the next 25 years because it's been updated and it's been finished. But in the process of going through that, I was going through old boxes of photographs and magazine articles and all this kind of stuff to find stuff for the Taller Than project. And in amongst that is a lot of information from bands that I was in before that band. Mm-hmm. And of course, so it just kind of reminded me, and my tape archive, which is a big plastic storage box full of cassettes and mini discs and CDRs and some quarter-inch tape and all kinds of stuff in there, really. So when I'm digging through looking for Taller Than material, I'm digging past this band Afterglow that I was in kind of early mid-90s, and then Mother Sugar after that, before Taller Than, and it really brought it back to me, kind of awoke my memories of that time. So we're still in the position whereby I released my last album of original rock music last October, Clovis Limit Part 2, and I can't tour that album. I'll play a bunch of festival shows, like 6 or 7 festival shows with that material this summer, but still, I really want to take that record and put that out on the road, but that's not going to be until the beginning of next year.
This is a response to reflection, I take it, from listening to what you're saying. This moment where we've had more time than what we would usually do, because normally we're on the road, or we're going from gig to gig. We're in the studio, we're doing this, we're doing that. But obviously we've had this has been an opportunity for the world to reset slightly, and to reflect and to gather, take stock perhaps. And do you think maybe this is a direct response to that?
Definitely. I mean, that reflective time, it's not always comfortable time for me, reflection time. In fact, I would say that it's some of the least comfortable time, because it is when I'm inactive, I'm often a bit worried about why I'm inactive and what if I'll ever be active again, and whether anything that I ever did was any good. So I sit in all of these feelings, and I'm not particularly good at sitting in all of these feelings. My work ethic is very much based around keeping myself occupied and reflecting on the experience of the Taller Than thing, which I was a bit, was anybody really going to be into this? Is it a bit of a vanity project? But it went far and above what I thought it would do in terms of people messaging me on socials and saying, "Oh, I love this song. This is a great song." And I hadn't even heard it for years and years and years. But my awareness of that, there's some more good stuff in the tank. And some stuff which could be better than it was, because the difference between the Taller Than project and this record is that we're re-recording the songs. The Taller Than stuff, we didn't record anything. We just mixed what was there.
Mixed and fixed.
Fixed and mixed, compressed it and EQ'd it and mixed it down. The first band that I was in that was any good was a band called Afterglow, and I joined them in the Christmas of 1993, and we knocked together a whole bunch of songs dead quick. I mean, I thought we sounded a bit like the Black Crowes, but those guys weren't really rockers, so I just didn't tell them that we sounded like the Black Crowes. I told them we sounded more like the Faces or the Small Faces or the Who. And
people say that about the Black Crowes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was what they were into. They were a generation back. I was coming from rock, heading towards this kind of white soul thing, and they were the other way.
Yeah.
So, for example, there's a song that we recorded about 5 different times. It's a great song called Acceptance. And it's beautiful. Really, really great lyrics written by the singer Chris Meikle, and really nice vibe. But we never got the arrangement right. Mm-hmm. So you can hear it. And I did hear it because I was going through all these tapes trying to find the definitive version, and there isn't one because all of them have got questionable choices around the length of like the guitar solo, hands up, or the refrain. The first version's about 7 minutes long, and it goes on for ages at the end.
Wow.
All this kind of overwrought refrain vocals and things. So to have like 25 years of industry experience, whatever it is, 30 years nearly, God, of industry experience now, to kind of go back to that and be the producer and put myself in the mindset of, if I was to be producing this band in the studio, I'd say, well, snip, 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 snip. Mm-hmm. 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes 20 if you do the long version. Great. And so that's exactly what I did. I loaded them into Pro Tools here and just edited them up and made versions, and then we took them in the studio. So that the main difference is that it's a different kind of feeling to the Taller Than one because I'm creating something new from these old roots.
About the bands and the existing tapes and demos that survived all those time, we've spoken about the relationship between you and the song, but what about the original members of the band? Have you reconnected with those guys? How is that relationship now, and how has it developed over these times? And how did you salvage the old tapes from the old recordings so you could actually go out and re-record stuff again? Listening back to stuff, was some of it a little bit dodgy? Was it, you had to go, oh, hang on a minute, some of that's missing? Or how did you collect the memories in order to reimagine these songs again?
Well, it started off with the tapes and discs and some CDRs, and basically it's my archive. So whenever I do anything, I put an archive copy in there. And of recent years, it's the quality of the archive material has gone up quite a lot. But the further back you go, it's
back to 93.
Basically stuff like this, and this was in that box. So this is an unused original stock Maxell C60.
That's gold. These cassettes, when I was a kid, I used to buy a pack of 10 of those for about, trying to think now, 4 quid, 5 quid maybe.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah,
they're like 30 quid now.
I know.
Hugely expensive. It's ridiculous, isn't it? I used to buy some records. This is like my birthday treat. I'd go into HMV or Virgin Megastore or something like that as a kid, go buy some records, and then I'd buy a box of cassettes to go with them. Yeah. Because then I'd record them onto cassette for my Walkman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there was people at school that used to sell dodgy copies.
yeah. Oh, of course, we do not advocate that sort of behaviour, but
home taping is killing music.
That's it. I remember the symbol of the cassette with the bones.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh,
he's long dead now. So I had these tapes anyway, and like I've always had this archive, and it gradually assembled itself over the years. It went from maybe being one of them, like again, if you go to Woodies and used to buy them plastic boxes that you could put 10 tapes in, they were like a crocodile jaw. Mm-hmm. It went from being one of them to being something else to something else to something else. Now it's
if you look, there was one of the original Woolworths 7-inch
yeah
record boxes.
Well, I've got one of them. It's just missing the lid. It was sellotape back on for a while, but it's gone now. And a couple of times I've dove into this. So before I grew up in the Northeast, and that's where these bands were active. And I moved down to Brighton in the summer 21 years ago, to the year 2000. And I remember probably this time of year in my parents' old house with the mini disc player that we owned, we all owned between us as the band. And I got these old tapes and I put them all on mini disc. I ripped them all in audio, so it took ages, hours and hours. Because I thought these tapes, I don't want to take them down to Brighton with me. I'll probably throw them away, but I put them on mini disc because it was the brand new concrete sort of bomb-proof format, and then I'll retain a copy of my archive. And so I did that. Around that time was when we started getting CDRs back from studios, so they were in there, and then on we go, and then the rest of my music career, stuff getting chucked on top. So I go to get this box out with the Taller Than project, and then I start to think, okay, well, I might do something with some of these other old songs. And all of the CDRs had failed. All of this new technology that replaced cassette tapes was failed, and I no longer had a functioning mini disc player. And so I go back to all of these old cassettes and dug out these versions of songs like Acceptance and then the next band that I was in, Mother Sugar. But what I ended up with was stuff that there was a particular period in the sort of middle of Taller Than's life in the Northeast, maybe early '99, where we went into a friend's studio to do some intensive rehearsals and songwriting, and I found a cassette of that session, and there was a track on there which we never did anything with. It's actually kind of unusually for me, it's a bit of a reggae song. It's not really a reggae song, but I remember at that time we were driving around listening to Elvis Costello a lot in the van, watching The Detectives, and it's got that kind of vibe.
Yeah, that vibe, yeah.
Yeah, so that song's never ever been heard. Digging the tapes out, going back through that, assembling a playlist. There was ones I knew I wanted to do by each band, and in fact there's a precedent for it, because you see, if you look on Clovis 2, there's a song called Hammer, which is really popular with the fans, and that's written by a guy called Paul Dent, and he was the songwriter in Mother Sugar. And if you look on my Jenny's Place record, there's a song called Love Slide, and that's another one that came out of that year's worth of being in Mother Sugar with him. He wrote both of those. Because they're not all my songs, the Taller Than stuff's all written by me. And there's 4 Taller Than songs, 4 Mother Sugar songs, and 4 Afterglow songs. Mm-hmm. The Afterglow songs were always a team effort, or certainly at that period, they were a team effort. Later, the singer Chris started bringing in completed compositions, and so did I. But early on, we used to have a caravan. We had this old static caravan up in Town Keller, which is, it's a bit like the Black Country. It's like, it's a funny old place up there. There's not much going on. There's old drift mines that are all sealed up, and all the population have gone because they were moved out 100 years ago or something. So funny old place. So we used to go up there and jam these songs. With that in mind, I did contact a singer from Afterglow, Chris Meikle, who's done really quite well for himself in these days. He runs a music instrument supply company, and and I mean, I'm kind of like loosely in touch with the majority of these people on socials, because the internet is, I lost track of most of them 20 years ago when I moved down here, because I stopped going back up to see them. Maybe see them at Christmas in the pub or whatever. But social media, I'm connected with all of these guys. So I had a good old catch up with Chris and chat, and he said, yeah, man, just if you use something that I was involved in, then just acknowledge that I was involved in it, really. And he wrote majority of the words for the 4 songs by Afterglow that are on this release. Mother Sugar was the same thing. You never get Den on the phone. He's dreadful at answering the phone. But he, through various messages, I said, how would you feel if I was to do this? And he's very Durham. So he says, oh, well, hi. We write to each other in
dialect.
In dialect, yeah. Oh, well, aye, that'd be canny. Music's, and he has a brilliant view on it, because he just said, well, music's for listening to, man. And if you can get people to listen to that music, then great. It's as far as... What
a remarkable attitude.
Well, the thing is, it's a long time ago, so, and we have nothing to prove. Our friendship has sustained, decades. Yeah. Insofar as that we're over any of the niggles that were in the relationships that caused the bands to end or whatever. Yeah. We've all gone on to have very fruitful lives, so it's not like a slightly more recent acrimonious breakup where you can't use this or you can't use that. Yeah, the band that was Afterglow, I left, and the keyboard player in that band, Afterglow, was Simon, who's Paul Dent's brother. We left Afterglow and formed Mother Sugar. With Den and with some other people, a piano player called Dave, and my brother Graham. And then Graham and I left Mother Sugar and formed Taller Than. So that's the kind of lineage of it. And they kept going after we left. Both of those bands kept going. So it's not like there was anything acrimonious, because they both went on to do probably better things after I'd been in them, you know, because it was the early stages of both of those bands. So Chris had a record deal offered by one of the defunct majors, and it never worked out, and then he got out of it. Paul, similar, they had a bit of interest, it died down. He has a different life. He still plays and records and writes music, and used to play locally before COVID. So he's got his own life. And they both watched Taller Than. They both watched the success of the Taller Than project a little bit, you know. So it's like, look, man, you remember them songs that we wrote that were great, that we wrote in that caravan in 1994, that have been lost to the winds. Well, I can get people to hear them. You know,
it's an incredible proposition for let's face it, they're your friends. They're, you know, former band members. They're still friends. It's lovely to see. But the experience of re-recording these songs today, technology and our own skills develop over time. It's the nature of the work. Was it, as I would imagine, visiting a long-lost love relative for you? And, you know, and sort of, was your connection different this time? Was it enhanced or inhibited in any way?
Well, I mean, I carried with it. The older the songs are, maybe the more in the way of tidying up they needed, for want of a better expression. So if we talk about that song Acceptance, for example, which had been a 7-minute odd thing, which was just way too long. So working out the inverted commas contemporary version of that, it felt really good to me because I hadn't forgotten about all these songs. So, and the word acceptance comes up for me quite a lot. So usually it's tied to the tagline of that song, but it don't come easy. It's the kind of, so you know, I've been hearing that song in my head all these years anyway. So coming back, it was really rewarding to go, you know, here it is. And actually, and the one that I've recorded, it sounds like Wings. It's really got that kind of best of Beatlesy harmonies, but kind of soulful 70s rock about it, you know. And I can't wait to play it to everybody. So, you know, rolling back a little bit, so I created a shared folder, Google folder, with the 12 songs in, and then shared that with my drummer Darren Lee, and he has a studio similar to this in his house, and he sat and learned the songs. And then we went over to Brighton Electric, which is where we often go when we want to get noisy, and we 3 days we recorded all the backing tracks, which is majority of drums. We didn't, just the two of us went in, so just guitar and drums. First time I've ever used a click track. I've been doing this all my life, and I've never used a mechanical timekeeper device. It's always been on.
Why did you decide to do that, Mike?
Because I wanted to have options of editing. I was still a little bit uncertain about how some of these things might turn out. And because, you know, you talk about skills increasing. Well, I'd gone from this guy that had no interest in recording. I wanted other people to do it. I want a glass partition here, and I just want to concentrate on playing the guitar and singing. And that was the kind of attitude that kept me out of the music industry for years and years and years, because I didn't have the money, and nobody would pay me. Nobody would pay for me to do that. So as I've been growing my career, I've been growing my skills in the studio and applying knowledge that I had, and just bothering to do it, you know. And now I've built quite a reasonable little studio here, because I've seen that through doing that, I can facilitate, you know, a higher standard of recording for a lower cost, which is great in my business model, if you like. So I can make good records for cheap, relatively speaking, because I can do a lot of the most time consuming thing, which is things like tracking guitars, tracking percussion, tracking vocals. I do them all in here, and then I outsource for the mixing. So anyway, I did it we took the drums in, did it to a click track. You didn't really need the click track in the end, but it's handy if you decide that you want to take a chorus out. And again, I never used to be that keen on that kind of thing. And then I read somewhere that, so Green Onions by Booker T and the MGs, which is one of my favourite pieces of music. And I read somewhere in an article with an interview with Steve Cropper, who's a guitar player in the MGs, and he said that whole thing was edited together from a longer jam, and that there's no more than 12 bars of it were played sequentially.
Wow.
The thing is that back then, 1965 maybe, your editing tools was one of these.
Yeah.
And a load of 2-inch tape.
That's right.
Your 2-inch tape or your 1-inch tape, depending whatever, and you lined it all up. You had a Chinograph pencil, so you'd have to kind of mark the tape where you wanted to chop it, mark the tape where you wanted to chop it again, listen to it slowly, try and negotiate through, try and find
incredible skill when you think about it, isn't it?
It has been done for the entire history of recorded music. People have edited it where they can, and then you stick it back together with sellotape, and then you find it, and then it's wrong, and then and I worked making records in the early 2000s with somebody that was doing that, and it is a magic science, but it's horrible and time consuming, really, and really fraught with danger because you can muck the tape up.
Yeah.
So doing it on Pro Tools is much easier. So that was kind of, it jarred with my authentic vision of how music should be created, until I realised that some of the music that I like best has been chopped to hell, And once you start listening for that, you start hearing it a lot.
Absolutely. I'm never going to listen to Green Onions the same again.
You know what? I can't hear that, because it's the thing. What they did with that is they did it, and then they just swamped it with really cheap, like analog reverb, so you can't hear it. But there's a great one. We were driving off to a gig somewhere, Darren and me, listening to AC/DC, listening to For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. Mm-hmm. I can't remember which track it was, but I'm driving up the M1 or something, and suddenly I spot an edit. And because the thing is, you can never hear them because the cymbals die off too quick. They go, and then the snare comes in. It's like, well, that should, if then the cymbal should be playing across the top while the snare comes in, but the cymbal stopped.
Yeah,
and it's really common. It was common in tape, and it remains common in digital. But I wanted to just have a try. To be honest, I don't think I needed to, but the process of recording was one of the things that stood out was that I bothered to learn tempos, because normally if I go in the studio and things are a bit fast when I'm finished, I just slow it down like you would do with the tape machine. Just slow it down a bit. She Painted the Moon from the RHR record, I slowed that down like quite a bit because we just raced through it in the studio. We didn't notice at the time. Mm-hmm. So I just slowed it down and re-recorded the guitars. It was fine. I'd listened to them a lot, these old versions of them by the original bands. In the car, I was reminding myself about lyrics. Some of them I never knew the lyrics to because I wasn't the singer. So I was learning all of this and thinking about arrangements and how I was going to do it. Just kind of living in the songs for a couple of months earlier this year before we went to the studio. Mm-hmm. And so the session was very fruitful. We did, because we didn't if we're going to go to all that effort of going in the studio, I tend to try and get about 3 projects worth of material. Like we did that with Mahogany Drift and the Clovis 2 record, where we did all the tracking the same day. So we did 20 odd songs in these 3 days. The origin story stuff was done in the first day. So that was cool. And then bringing it in here, back to the tone can, and then pushing the drums up on the computer here, and then starting to, record keeper guitar parts and keeper bass parts and things. It's great, and so the connection to the songs was very beneficial to the process because I knew them inside out. They've been around decades longer than my children. So they're really, like, I'm really comfortable with them and really rewarding. It's like listening to me playing guitar in a studio somewhere in the mid-90s at some average studio, and then playing the same guitar. My Gold, I have a Les Paul Gold Top, which has been through all of them bands, bringing that down here, playing the same guitar, recreating those sounds, like
amazing,
better, like see, if I'd have known then what I know now, then I'd have insisted that they use this kind of microphone and that they didn't put that kind of effect on, and, whatever. So it's really rewarding for me, the chance to put a bit of your past history right, I suppose. A
huge amount of satisfaction. Now it's done, dusted, ready to roll. How pleased are you with it? Now you've stood. Now it's the chance to stand back and enjoy it in its entirety for what it is now that you've created.
Well, actually,
how do you feel?
I still need to do the vocals. So I've had a bit of a throat infection. I'm still a bit bunged up all this side of my head. So I'm holding off the vocals. I'm also a little bit like, I sort of don't want to finish it. Yeah. Like that sort of fear of finishing.
Yeah, you kind of like, you're enjoying you seem to be enjoying the process throughout. So I guess really for you at the moment, it's kind of like, once it's over, it's going to be quite sad, really, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I did, because I played everything else, actually. I've played everything else, even all of the organ this time. And that was fun, because the organ player in both of those bands, same guy, Simon Dent, and we were close. He was the nearest. He and I lived in like, he lived in the next village over, so we used to do all the travelling. He would be the first one I'd pick up. I was always driving. He'd be the first one I'd pick up and the last one I'd drop off. So we always had a bit more hangout time,
Yeah.
So and we had organ faces. We talk about the sounds of organs and whatever. But back in those days, we never really had good gear. My guitar was pretty good. My amp was okay, but we never had a proper sounding Hammond organ. Well, I've got a proper sounding Hammond organ and a Leslie here now. I really felt like Simon was here sometimes. I've messaged him. He's a bit like his brother. I've messaged him a few times. I asked him if he wanted to do some playing, but he hasn't got back to me. He's got his own life, but I'm like, so I'm playing this stuff. I'm a bit of a cack-handed organ player, to be honest, but more of it is about the sound, the kind of
whirling Leslie thing going on,
and the way that it sort of soaks up space like a sponge in the mix. You get a lovely sound. So, like doing the guitars, everything's done, as I say. It's just vocals and BVs, and I'll probably do them next week. It won't take me long because all of the work's done, and then it shouldn't be long to mix. So I've been deliberately keeping away from it a little bit because I'm a bit aggravated by the fact that I can't sing it yet, and I don't. I'm trying to give myself a little break, but I will. The first thing I'll be doing is sending all of that stuff to Al Scott, who is the guy that actually makes my records. I mean, I say, I call myself the producer, and I do in that I'm the only guy that's there for the whole time something's being done to it. But really, I kind of nudge it into shape with my elbows like that.
Yep. And then go, there you go.
Al has it, and then Al's the guy that painstakingly just adjusts and EQs, pulls my ass out of the fire time and time again.
Sounds like a real hero.
Yeah, he's great, and he's really pragmatic. You have to be in that kind of job.
Amazing. Now, let's move on, if we can, to crowdfunding and raising funds and for this particular project that you're doing at the moment. Why use crowdfunding to raise funds, and what are the rewards? I mean, we can see that time, studios, musicians, even utility bills all have a cost. All services do. Your fans are always amazingly loyal and close to you and your work, Mike. A partnership. I always see this thing about partnership between you and your audience. Tell me about the crowdfunding opportunity, your relationship with the fans, and some of the really special things that you have on offer and available. And where do we go for all of this? Tell us.
Well, actually, I did a really small one when I did the Jenny's Place album. It was just a little target. It was using the old pledge music thing, which then later collapsed, owing musicians millions of pounds. I did just a brief one. In fact, it bust its target within about 24 hours, because all I wanted to do, I wanted to use the program to get a bit of money to pre-order the physical stuff, the CDs. I wanted to pay for the CDs, and I wanted to use it because I was intending to do a bigger campaign for the next record.
Yeah.
But obviously during COVID, when we were all suddenly confined to our rooms and I was down here every day finding ways to kind of engage with and provide for an audience, all using this microphone on this screen, so I learned a bit there about people, and just watching people, in my Facebook group, and how they would respond, and how they looked at how they were seeing what other artists were doing, and how they responded to that, and they love, as you say, they would love to be a part of it. We like to be a part of it. It's
a community, isn't it? It's a tribe.
Yeah, exactly. So we build a community, and I kind of did that through last summer, and then the new album, and then this and that, and then the Taller Than thing was the first time I ever reached back into them and said, "Can you help me with this?" Instead of going, "This is what I've got, and do you want to be a part of it?" And I'm now like, "Oh, I've got you now. So here's the thing that I've done for us that will be rewarding, and that you can help me." And and it was very successful. And the target on that was a few thousand. And it met it comfortably, In terms of like my day-to-days, I don't have big budgets available to produce these works, But this album, and just like the Taller Than one before it, it's only possible through the contributions of the fans, and this one will be a bit cheaper, The Taller Than one was quite a lot of money involved in process of restoring these tapes and things like that. This time's a bit cheaper, and I'm not going to do a vinyl. I think it's just a CD thing. So there's that, but if nothing else, it's just a pre-order. My fans, because a lot of them are not just fans of me, they're like fans of other artists who are similar to me, all the way up the chain to majors. They see the benefit in getting this exclusive pre-order, because they see that it facilitates the ongoing process of art creation. Just like if you go back in time to the Renaissance, and you have all of these Venetian merchants who were buying Stradivarius violins and things like that, and then lending them to musicians, and there's still to this day.
It's a patronage, isn't it?
Patronage, yeah, exactly. Without that, the arts become it's just more difficult, because it's not that lucrative when you're at the thin end of the wedge.
And what I find interesting about your fans is that they have this real understanding of the sustainability possibilities in the music and arts industry overall. Mm-hmm. And obviously with you, they understand that this is all part of keeping that creation alive, keeping that creation moving and going. And of course, it's not all about what they can give to you. You're giving them some things throughout this entire process as well. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, exactly that. They're not just giving me money for nothing. They can, and having delivered a successful crowdfunding campaign already this year that 100 and odd people got involved in, that received these packages that were so highly regarded by the recipients. Mm-hmm. It's building on the success of that. It's how you build a business, isn't it? Look, I've done this and it was successful. Do you want to be a part of the next one? The next one's actually going to be cheaper, and it's going to be different, and it feeds back into this, so it sustains me, it sustains you. And another part of that is that something that I feel that I do, which is like my major selling point as an artist, is that you know me. I'm not one guy on stage and another guy on socials and another guy if you bumped into me for a coffee. Mm-hmm. The version of me that I am is like authentic and combined as possible. So like I try and be the same guy on stage as I am when I'm talking to my boy. It's not about, I don't have a persona that I deploy. So the phrase that comes up for me is that, in the way that I engage with my audience, if you like, the authenticity is absolutely the most important thing for me.
And being present as
well. Yeah. Actually telling the truth about how I feel about something. In terms of how I communicate with people from the stage, from the merch stand, via social media, via newsletters, via the content of my recordings, I think
via between us via the classroom, as we shared
Exactly that. Yeah, whatever I am, like it's the same guy, right? Yeah. So that appeals to some people. Some people love it when you have a completely outspoken somebody that's got a flamboyant stage presence, but actually is really introverted off stage. Mm-hmm. That's not me. I try and be the same guy. There are people that won't appeal to, and there are people that will. So therefore, I don't say anything that I don't mean. And I don't ask for anything unless I need it. So look, I need your help with this. And then a whole bunch of people went, we've got your back because we see you. We don't see you asking for that for just anything. We believe that what you're offering is, one, it's going to happen. Two, it's going to be of a good standard. And at three, that our involvement in it continues to help you grow as an artist. So great, brilliant. What more could I ask for?
Authenticity and always delivering on a promise, to the most important things there. Now, about the first single release, Seabirds. Tell me about that.
Well, Seabirds was an Afterglow song, and it was, the concept for it was maybe the basic chords were written by Simon, the keyboard player. Mm-hmm. But the idea came from this, watching chartered flights of seabirds heading out to sea into Mother Nature's world. Nature's also free. So just kind of, young guy struggling with his identity of being somebody that wants to be a musician, but being stuck in a shit job, And it was interesting because, I mentioned earlier about how I thought we were in the Black Crowes and they all thought we were in like Paul Weller's band, for example.
Yeah. The Faces or something like that.
Yeah, that much more English thing, and it's cool. But when we were working with a producer guy called John Scott, who sadly passed away a few years later, but we went into this studio, it was Impulse Studios in Newcastle, and we did this session with this song. And there was a couple of versions of this song, Seabirds, and there's one where it's quite slow and strummy, a little bit like sort of Crosby, Stills and Nash. And then there's the version that I said, look, we should do it like this. It's quite up-tempo, it's like punchy. And the version that I've done now with my virtual razor blade is just about 3 minutes long, It's like verse, chorus, solo, chorus, out. Great, And it's similar to, there was a song with Taller Than called Nicotine Placebo, which actually began as we played it in Afterglow, and then he retired it for a little while, and then it came back when I formed a band, Taller Than, and that song I still get. We put that. Emma Scott helped us put that out at the beginning of the year. She sent it to all of our contacts, and that so these songs were written the same kind of time, and it's a kind of similar song to Nicotine Placebo, same sort of vibe. And it still gets hundreds of plays a week all over the world. I still get these play counts I don't understand. This is a song I wrote when I was like 21 in my mum and dad's house in Durham.
And now resonating with a completely new audience.
Yeah, and it's still around. And so Seabirds is the natural progression of, if you're going to go back into my old history, there's another one of them. And it's kind of a confidence of seeing what Nicotine did. And I think everybody that's listening to Seabirds will probably, listening to Nicotine will probably like Seabirds too.
That's fascinating. Brilliant. Mike, thank you so much for coming to talk to us today.
No, thanks, man.
Really wish you the very best of luck with the album and the crowdfunding. And of course, Mike will be putting up all the links and social media bits and pieces very, very shortly, no doubt. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, take it easy, man.